Hey, welcome to my channel where I pretty much talk about different historical events and ideological beliefs that seem to have become distorted and over our modern world. Somewhat modern. If you are new to my channel, if you liked my video, click the like and subscribe button below. And here we go. In today's video, I'm pretty much going to talk about the difference between socialism, fascism, and communism. So pretty much under socialism, individuals still own property. There's this belief that if you don't live in a democratic society, that therefore you don't own property. Is not completely true. Socialism, you still own property such as private property and personal property like phones, houses, cars, things like that. But the means of production is owned primarily by the collective group. So the factories, the cars, people are allowed to use them and they own them, but also everyone in society can use it. So anyone can go to your car and use your car. Anyone can go into a factory and say that they own it and that they can manage it, or how to run the factory. And that's pretty much socialism. And another part of it is people can vote to have a socialist government, where there is a actual legislative body and a head of state, or someone who's a symbol for the way what people look for in a leader. Is a leader, pretty much, that pretty much runs the country and closely resembles a democratic one. The only difference is that socialism, there's no elections. There's not multiple parties. There's only the one set of beliefs. There's only one election. You're only allowed to vote from people from one political party. But then there's communism. So under a communist government, the state or central government owns the means of production. Where instead of people in society owning the means of production, the government centralizes and controls the means of production of all the factories and owns the way people run their lives, pretty much. And established following usually a violent revolution and a violent uprising over the original country, original government that was there before. The revolution is the basis of the Communist Revolution and the Communist Manifesto written by Karl Marx, that in order for man to be free and to be truly independent, he must free himself from the bonds of the proletariat. And proletariat is just the people who own the means of production, the factory owners, the factory workers, and those who own pretty much the way society runs. And Karl Marx was a very jealous man. He was never made any money. He was kind of a professor, but he never made any money. He constantly was unemployed. He actually let one of his own children starve to death. He was not a very well thought out or very well mentally stable person. Now we'll go into another part where people confuse this kind of government with communism. So fascism. Fascism and communism are not the same thing. Under a fascist government, the means of production and the government actually work together to pretty much create policy and run the country. So the Nazis. The most well-known fascist government is the Nazis. Primarily 1932, when the Nazis took over Germany, they overthrew the Kaiser, overthrew the original government, because actually for a time Germany had a legislative body and they had somewhat of a democratically run government. And Nazis, it's a German, the German words, but pretty much stands for the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which is...
You're not hungry, are you, Noah?
And the Nazis aren't communists. They're more socialists. They're more on someone else. The more the more of themselves owning the means of production rather than trying to distribute out the means of production. So the Nazis wanted a centrally controlled format of government, in which they determine who gets the money, who gets resources, how resources are distributed out. And the story behind how Germany actually came to power was that they burned down the original legislative body. So in Germany, it's the Reichstag. It's equivalent to like the U.S. Congress today. They burned down the building and actually blamed the Jews for it. And this is primarily where the Nazis start rounding up the Jews, because they blamed the Jews for something they didn't even do. And they started blaming other groups as well. It was primarily the Jews, but they also blamed gays and there was one more, gypsies. They also blamed gypsies for it. They believed that these were undesirables, that without them society would be better, that the world would be better without them. And that's when they started sending them to concentration camps, in essence to get rid of them, to purge themselves of all those who they deemed unworthy to be a German citizen or just be in the world. They believed that the world wasn't big enough for all of them. They wanted a perfect society. And it seems consequential that people nowadays search for a perfect society, and they're doing the exact same things the Nazis do. They're blaming other people for their problems. They claim that they are just and right in their beliefs, even though they will never listen to it and their counter argument to their beliefs. Anytime people would claim that their beliefs or someone else's beliefs are wrong, they will blame them and crucify them in society and say that they are the outsiders. We must get rid of them. This seems a lot going on in today. That if not everyone's completely 100% with the beliefs of society, they are deemed unworthy to be in society, and that their voices should be silenced, and that their very being should be destroyed. A common similarity between these ideologies is the seizing of individual freedoms and liberties. Again, some of them, they allow people to have rights, but only a certain groups of people have rights, and in limited quantities on how they can use that, how to use their own rights. And it was all for the sake of the collective protection. They wanted to protect their society. They wanted to create this perfect society to protect themselves and the group at the same time. And all three ideologies involve assigning blame for their problems or issues that arise within their own countries and within their own society. While instead of convicting people in a court, like in a democratic representative form of government, convicting them in a court of law by a jury of their peers, they're automatically considered guilty. And then they go to a court to pretty much ask them, is a sentencing hearing. So they've already been decided guilty before they even could defend themselves. And then they're accused of, and then they're getting how do they want their blame or their criminal punishment to be carried out? Either, most notably, it's either death or exile, or life in prison. One of the three. The Soviet Union had the famous Gulag, which is in Siberia, which is in the farthest corner of Russia, pretty much right by Asia, but the Pacific Ocean. It is absolutely horrible. Nobody lives there. It's absolutely horrible. People either freeze to death or starve to death. One of the two. And all three forms of government, of these governments, fascism, socialism, and communism, are under the overall arching blanket of this concept called totalitarianism, which is a complete control of all people and all things in society, where you will, the WEF, the World Economic Forum, is a great example of a totalitarianistic society or organization. They have the famous quote by the people of the World War, by I think it was 2030, you will own nothing but be happy. And that's the whole idea of totalitarianism, is control. All three of these forms of government are about control. The only forms of government that have actually helped people, the individual person, is democracy. And specifically being in a capitalistic, democratic country or nation or society in general is the only concept that has helped people grow, have helped people out of poverty, have helped them to improve their lives. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button, click subscribe. If you have a comment, leave it below. I'll react to pretty much any comments you have, if you like it or not. If you have any other questions, just let me know. Alright, and thanks for listening.